Okay, welcome back. We are finally getting back on the quarter scale speeder bike build. This is the buck for the body section, and I said in the last video we're going to make that out of carbon fiber. This is 3D printed, and I went over it, sanded it smooth, put some Bondo on it, and filler primer, and spot and glazing putty, and then more primer, and sanded it smooth, and now it's got a coat of gloss black paint. I glued that to a board or a piece of wood so I can clamp that in my vise. So now I can work on it, and I've already went over it with a buffing compound and then a layer of wax. And so right now it's got a layer of wax on it. I'll probably put another 3 or 4 layers of wax on it, and then I'll spray it with a mold release and before I lay the carbon on it. I covered my workbench with paper towel because I don't want any resin dripping onto my workbench. The next step is I need to make some templates. So to cover this, and again, if you don't remember from last video, I'm going to do 1 layer of carbon fiber and then pop it off of this plug. Then I can flip it over and put a few more layers on the inside to strengthen it and support it. So let me get some paper templates cut, and we'll come back when I'm ready to start cutting some of the carbon fiber, and we'll get some carbon laid on this. Now I've got the patterns made, and I've got the carbon already cut out for each pattern. So this pattern is for right there. So I have 5 patterns total. I have this one for that top, and then I have that top one there, and then this little one right here, if I can pick it up, this little one here goes on the top there. And then I have a side, and I'm going to do 2 of those. So that part here covers that edge, center line here, and up to the side of that. And so yeah, those 5 pieces should hopefully go on pretty well. Now I'm using carbon because I think I said in a previous video that carbon fiber is stiffer than fiberglass. So I don't want my body shell to be really thick. I want my body shell to be thin but stiff. If I use regular fiberglass, I would have to do 2 or 3 times thicker to get the same stiffness. So, and plus I already had the carbon. It is a little heavier than I would like, but it should be fine. It should still lay down okay. So again, I'm just going to do 1 layer, let that cure, pop it off, flip it over, and then do the internal structure so the corners are held together a little bit better. Because right now the corners are just going to be meeting, maybe overlapping a little bit. So just 1 layer, the corners won't be strong at all. You could probably very easily break it apart. So I'll put some internal support in after this top layer is done. But again, by doing it this way, I don't have to make a mold. At least that's the theory behind it. Whether it works or not, I guess we'll find out later. I mean, I've done this kind of thing before, and it's always worked out in the past. So hopefully it'll work out this time. So next step is I want to go ahead and start mixing up resin and getting these cut out and ready to apply. Now, when you're doing this, if you've never done it before, there is a really messy way to do it, and there's a neat, clean way to do it. Hopefully I'll show you the neat, clean way to do it. So let me get set up, and we'll come back. I'll have some resin mixed, and we'll start cutting out one of these patterns and getting it applied to the piece. I'm using West Systems 105 resin, 206 slow hardener. I like the slow because I don't want to take any chances of it setting off before I'm ready, and I am perfectly fine doing 1 layer and waiting to the next day. Here you can see how I'm going to have these 2 pieces laid out. You can also notice that I have this laid out on a piece of plastic. This is just garbage bag plastic. You can use pretty much any kind of plastic. And this, like I said, there's a messy way and a neat way. I'm going to show you the neat way. So you're going to do this between 2 layers of plastic. I have some acid brushes. I have my fabric cutters that I'm going to use to cut the pieces out with. and I have the cups that I'm going to mix the resin in. I'm a little not as prepared as I like to be. I normally like to have mixing sticks and better brushes and bigger cups, but this is fine for that size. But let me put the camera down and show you how we're going to do this. And again, I don't have proper stuff. I'm just using a pencil to stir it. But that should be fine. But you want to mix this as thoroughly as possible. You want to make sure you scrape all the sides. Also, don't use waxed cups because the resin will kind of dissolve the wax in the cup and it'll make it weaker. Now, these are not waxed cups, but even if they were, again, for this project, it probably wouldn't matter, but still, you want to use the right stuff. And this is a pretty small batch of it, and typically the rule of thumb is you mix it until your hand is sore, then you mix it for another 5 minutes. But that's for, you know, larger batches. For what this is, as long as it's thoroughly mixed, the roller gets the resin all the way out to all the material, and it helps remove excess, because excess resin just makes more weight that you don't want. Now for what I'm doing, any excess will just get sanded off. But if you're doing something that's structural, excess resin does not make it stronger, it just makes it heavier. And it is soaked through both sides. And remember, I said this is the neat way. Notice I'm not wearing gloves. So far I don't have any resin on me at all. The messy way is to cut out the piece, put it on your thing, and then just start putting resin on it and spreading it around. Then it drips all over the place, makes a big mess. You get it all over your hands. So now we're going to position these pieces the way we want them. And I'm just going to use a Sharpie. Now, carbon fiber and fiberglass can shift and move around a little bit. So if your pattern isn't perfect, or if you draw it a little bit or cut it a little bit oversized, that's not that big a deal, because you can typically kind of move it and stretch it and shrink it a few different ways. And I could tell I've got way too much resin on there. Then you're going to use a fabric cutter and just cut it out. Which mine is a little bit old. I probably should have got a new one for this project. Yeah, usually it cuts better than that. If you got a new cutter, it usually goes a lot better than that. So now what we would do then is take off the top layer of the plastic. Now we can carry that over and put it on the model. Now something else you can do just to soak up any excess resin, because like I said, I got too much resin. Just take a paper towel, and that will help soak up if you have too much resin on there. So actually right now, I'm going to put gloves on now because this is, you do need gloves at some point, but so far it's a lot neater than the other way. I'm going to put some gloves on, I'm going to take this over to the model, and then I'll take you over to see what that looks like. And it still has the plastic on that side. All right, so there it is on the model. So we're just going to make sure it's pushed down. And then I'm going to take that plastic off. Just make sure that it's around all of the edges. And that's the first piece done. I'm going to go ahead and do the rest and come back and show you what it looks like. But that's pretty much it. The hard one is going to be the side. Just because it kind of goes along here and up along the side there. And maybe I should have done that first. I don't know. I guess we'll find out when I do that. But that's pretty much all there is to it. And like I said, I'm just going to do the rest and I'll come back and show you what it looks like when it's all done. Okay, it is the next morning and this is pretty much set. It's probably not fully cured. It's definitely dry-ish. It has not been 24 hours yet. Maybe, I don't know, 15. Anyway, so the next thing I want to do is trim off the excess. If you just take a razor and it's still green enough that it cuts very easily. So I'm just going to go around all the edges just like that. And I'm pushing into the model. You don't want to pull away because then you could, well, I mean, I'm going to have to release that anyways. I guess it doesn't matter. But just trim off those edges because right now those are really sharp. And I don't want to cut myself. So I'm going to do that all the way around. Also, I want to go ahead and get rid of any of this excess here that I can. That's not going to be the best tool for that. And I need a new blade because this one is kind of dull. There we go. So I want to remove any excess there. Same thing here. Mainly just so I don't cut myself right now. But I think so far that is looking pretty good. I want it to cure a little bit more before I try to pop it off of the part. And I had a little bit of a patch I had to put in here because I didn't position this back far enough and it was short just a tiny bit. So I put a piece over there to patch that up. No big deal there. But yeah, it is actually Monday morning, and unfortunately, I have to go to work. I have to do my day job. So I'm going to have to just set this down for now and leave it till I get home from work. There's a few corners I'm a little concerned about, though. Right there, right there didn't lay down right. So that's going to be an issue, but it will be fixable, so not that big of a deal. But I'm going to let this set for the rest of the day now. And when I come back from work, I will finish trimming that up and then see if it's ready to come off of the plug here. So I will see you guys back in a little bit. All right, so I think I'm man enough to admit when I may have made a mistake. I'm starting to second guess my decision to do it this way instead of using a mold. Now, I've made parts like this before and it worked out okay, but I'm starting to think that maybe given the shape of this, maybe a mold would be the best way to go, but I don't want to give up on this just yet. There are a few issues. There are a few areas where the corners did not come together properly. So, like right in here. So that will have to get sanded down. And once that gets sanded down, it's going to go through that layer. Which, you know, the layers on the backside, I can fill in the backside enough to accommodate for that. But there's a couple of places like that where I didn't do a good job of making sure the corners met up properly. So the problem with what I'm looking at now is I started loosening it up. I went through and I started loosening up around here. It is coming off okay so far. It's still stuck right on top and through here. But this is a little bit flexible enough that I'm concerned about it losing shape while I'm doing the inside part, while I'm adding the inside layers for the stiffness and the structure. And I kind of already knew that I was going to have to build something on the outside to hold its shape. And my thought was to use these, you know, I get these sticks pre-wrapped to maintain freshness. But my thought was to use these and just kind of glue along here and along here like that to hold its shape while I did the inside stuff. Now that I'm realizing exactly how flexible this is, which I kind of knew it would be, I don't know what I was thinking. I'm going to have to use a whole lot of sticks, or just cover the whole thing in a thick layer of fiberglass to make like a form to hold its shape while I do the inside stuff. But that sounds a lot like a mold. But if I do it that way, it doesn't have to be perfect. For example, I could just put a big piece of saran wrap over top of this, just pile on a ton of thick fiberglass, and let it set. And it doesn't have to be perfect. It can be full of air pockets. It doesn't have to be smooth. And the piece of saran wrap, it'll just pop right off. And that'll just give a shape to hold this in shape. So it doesn't have to be perfect like a mold would have to be perfect. So that would save time. But I'm still going to have to sand all of this smooth and fill it and sand it and fill it and make it smooth. Whereas if I did a mold off of this piece, I wouldn't have to do all of that. So for this one, I think it would have been better to just have done a mold. But I'm going to continue to waste time and see if I can salvage this one. Now this is just a piece of styrene, and so I took this underneath to start breaking it loose. And I'm going to see if I can get the rest of this to come free. And just working it under here. And then I'll use some tape on those edges here. Now the tape will also help with maintaining the shape while I take it off. And it really doesn't matter that the seam came loose, because again, when I put the structure on the inside, all of that's gonna be fine. Alright, so there's the inside. And yeah, some of the seams broke apart. And the inside of that, I mean, I could use this as the mold if I just add more layers to the top of it. That's not a bad idea. I mean, it's already free from this. So what I could do is just put that back on, build up a ton more layers, and then pull that off, and then there's my mold. That's not a terrible idea. Let me think about it. I'll get back to you. All right, so I had a long, hard think about what I wanted to do here. This is just the plug. And what I decided to do was take that thin carbon fiber shell that I made, put it back on the plug, tape over all the seams tightly with masking tape and then clear packaging tape. And then I put pieces of wood like this around the base to give myself like a flange. Covered that with clear packaging tape. And then I went over the whole thing with this type of mat and automotive resin. You know, the resin where you actually have to count the drops. It's like 10 drops per ounce, and you mix it. And if you're not careful and you squeeze a little bottle too hard, it'll squirt in there instead of dropping in there. And then it sets up as you're stirring it. Yeah, that stuff. The good thing about that stuff is that it's cheap and it does set quickly, but not too quick. If you mix it properly, it won't set too quick. If you mix it properly, you got plenty of working time. Well, maybe not plenty. It depends on how big your project is. But for something like this, plenty of working time if you mix it right. And also, if you're using this fiberglass mat, one thing to keep in mind, all of these fibers are kind of held together by a binder, kind of like hairspray, but not hairspray. And the automotive resin will actually kind of dissolve that binder, because when you take a piece of this and you try to lay it on your project, it does not want to conform and bend nicely. It keeps wanting to lift up. But once you put that resin on, it'll kind of dissolve that binder, and then this stuff just lays down perfectly flat. If you use like the West systems, like the stuff I did for the carbon fiber, I'm 98% sure it does not dissolve the binder, and this won't want to lay down very well for you. So I'm fairly certain that if you want to use this, you really almost have to use the automotive type. And you know, I use fiberglass quite a bit, but I've never claimed to be a professional. I can't remember things. I think the West systems, well, yeah, I'm looking at the can right now. It's an epoxy resin. So the West systems is an epoxy resin. The automotive stuff, that's what I keep forgetting. I think it's a polyester. Is that right? Let me know in the comments. I'm pretty sure it's called a polyester resin. But yeah, if you use this stuff, you got to use the automotive stuff, not the epoxy resin. And again, if I'm wrong, let me know, because that's something that's I have a hard time keeping stuff like that straight, or remembering stuff like that. But anyways, so the end result, what I now have, here's the end result of that. Now I put a few sticks in there just to help with the stiffness, and I built up several layers of that. And again, I got the flange on there to help. And there's what the inside looks like. And let's get this out of the way. Since I did such a really bad job making this first part the first time, you can see that there are some problem areas, like that seam right down here didn't make very well, and a few seams back here didn't make very well. And right now, since I covered the outside of this in packaging tape, if I wanted to, I could still remove this carbon fiber shell from the fiberglass shell thing here. So I could still do my original thought and sand all of the inside of the surface, lay down several more layers of carbon, and then peel it out of the fiberglass shell here. But if I do that, remember, the back side of this is still rough. I would have to sand it all smooth. And at this point, I've already got a really nice smooth surface here. So at this point, I might as well just make this the mold. And I know a lot of you guys are like, yeah, I told you so. And yeah, you're fine. I agree. I admit this is the way I should have done it the first place. Well, not exactly like this. I should have just made a normal mold the first place. If I would have made a normal mold the first time, I wouldn't have these edges that are going to kind of mess me up here. But that's okay. That's fine. I didn't waste that much time. I still believe that my original thought is a good process for other types of parts. For smaller parts, because I've done it that way before. But again, the difference is they were smaller, and I didn't spend a ton of time on the plug, making the plug perfect. I only spent the time with the outer shell, making it perfect. But since I made the plug perfect-ish, this is already good. So I'm just going to keep this as the mold, which, again, I admit that's the way I should have done it the first time. So since I did a bad job with these corners, if I were to just put the release agent in it and put the carbon in it, I'm going to have those corners to have to fix. I know I'm going to have to do that. There's no way around that. But to help with those corners, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go over the bad corners there with just a piece of packaging tape, like just a thin strip of packaging tape. That way the resin doesn't soak into the tape, or that way the resin doesn't soak around the edge of the bad corner and then lock it on. So yeah, anywhere I see green, I'm just going to tape over with just a little thin strip of clear packaging tape. That way when I pop the piece out, all I got to do is clean up those edges and it's done. So that's the theory anyways. I'll just have a few edges to clean up and that'll be it. So the next step is what I just said. I got to prep this, but then I can still use these same patterns I made. And now it's just back to the same way that I made the original shell. Cut out the pieces, lay them in, and but this time when I'm doing this, I can just push those corners right up into the corners and cut them oversize a little bit and have them overlap a little bit. And then once I get all those pieces in, take other strips and just lay them across side by side this way, you know, all the way from the front, you know, starting here, all the way here, all the way down, and just build it up like that. I'm thinking about 4 layers. And what I would like to do is after the first 2 layers, right in here is a nice big flat area, and back here's a big flat area. What I want to do is cut out a piece of this to put in the flat areas. So for that back end, there's the pattern for the back. Just cut out a piece that shape, and cut out a piece that shape. This is carbon fiber with a thin aluminum honeycomb core. And this will provide a lot of stiffness and strength back here and right here. And I got this stuff. I've had this stuff for quite a while now. So I figured I might as well use it. It's kind of cool stuff. But yeah, carbon skin with aluminum honeycomb core. And that's what I'll put in the flat areas here just to give some extra support. Now, I don't know if I'm going to record doing all of that because it's pretty much the exact same process of what I did the first time. Just cutting out the pattern. I'm going to lay it out between plastic and cut out the pattern and then lay it in. It's going to be the exact same way that I did that first skin there. So I'll probably just do all of that and come back to you once I've got it pulled out of the mold and done and ready to go. So I don't know. We'll see what I actually record or not. All right. So let me get this done and we'll get back to you here in just a minute. Okay. So I've got all of the carbon fiber in. There's 4 to 5 layers, maybe 3 in some places. Back here, there's a lot. Also back here, I have that piece of carbon fiber with the aluminum honeycomb core. That's what this clamp is on here for, to hold that down. So once I put that in, I put another layer of carbon on top of that, and then I put this block with packaging tape on it so it would release, and that should release like that. And so the back here is definitely thick enough and stiff enough. I might be a little concerned with other areas around the sides. If they're too flexible, I mean, once I pop this out, if it's too flexible, I can always just kind of set it back in there and put more layers. So it's not that big of a deal. But right now, before I try starting to pry this out, I need to trim off the excess. And so you can just take a knife here and just start trimming off the excess. And keep in mind, right now, these edges are going to be really sharp. So I've already been, not really cut, but I've been stabbed a few times with little carbon fiber needles. And for one area, I had a really hard time getting all of the fabric to lay down around this area here. So there's a lot of little sharp pieces sticking up here. But I can sand that off. Now, I will admit that this would have been a perfect thing to vacuum bag. This would have came out better if I would have done a vacuum bag. I don't really have all the materials I need for vacuum bagging. I need to get some more peel ply, and I need to get some breather, some of that breather, whatever that's called, breather ply, breather cloth. I'm not that good at planning ahead. I should have ordered that stuff a few weeks ago. Then I could have vacuum bagged it. Now, vacuum bagging would have made it come out better, but it is still perfectly fine for what this is. It is still going to work. It's just that it could have been a little bit better. But again, that's not that big of a deal. Now, if I was mass producing these to maybe put them in a kit and sell them, which, by the way, I'm not going to do that. But if this was something I was mass producing, then it would definitely be worth the time and effort setting up the vacuum bagging process. Now, it's still a little bit proud, but that's fine. I can always, I'm going to have to sand the edge down and clean it up. And the back end is a little bit long. That's going to need to get cut off, but you can see the aluminum core. And now we need to see if this is going to release. Now, it's not fully cured yet. It's still just a little bit, I mean, it's been several hours. It is definitely dry to the touch. It's not sticking to me. It doesn't feel sticky, but it definitely does not feel 100% cured. And yeah, it feels like it's going to start pulling off fine. But I want it to cure for a few more hours before I start trying to pull this off. Because if it is still a little bit soft, I don't want to bend it out of shape, if that makes any sense. So before I try really pulling it off, I'm just going to let it cure for a little bit longer. So we'll come back when this is ready to pull out of here. Now, I already know for a fact I'm going to have issues with some of the corners. I'm already fully expecting to have to do repair work on the corners once I pull it out. But that's fine. that's fine. If I would have done this right the first time, maybe not, but it's fine. So I'll get back with you here in just a little bit. All right, so here it is out of the mold, and as expected, I'm going to have to do some repair work along here, which that isn't that bad. That'll be easily fixed. And same thing here and along here and a little bit here and just a little bit around here. But again, all of that will be easily fixed. That doesn't really bother me at all. I mean, it kind of bothers me that I didn't just do a normal mold like a normal person, then I wouldn't have these issues, but it's still okay. It'll still work. Now, when I took it out of the mold, I realized that the edges were a little thinner than I wanted. So I went back and I put in 6 layers of carbon, about an inch wide, a little bit more than an inch wide. You can see the seam from there to there. And I did that from the end all the way around to the other end. Of course, I had some weird overlaps here, but that's fine. So now it's a little bit thicker, and that it'll make it a lot stiffer for one. And also, it'll make it to where when somebody picks up or handles the model, if they get their fingers under the edge, it's not going to feel sharp. I still need to sand that smooth. It is still very rough cut. So I need to sand that edge perfectly smooth and repair the issues here. And then it'll be ready to do more stuff to it. There's still a lot of work has to be done to this, but I need to make it look all pretty first. So let me get the edges smooth. Let me get the issues here fixed, and I'll probably go ahead and put a coat of primer on it, and then we'll show you what that looks like here in a little bit. Okay, here is where we are so far. I got a layer of primer on it. It's actually looking pretty good, I think, and needs a little bit more work. I don't know how well you can see, but that corner right down in there, I need to sand that smoother and then probably reprime it. So a little minor issue there, but I think the rest of it, a little bit right there too. But I think it's looking really good, despite the fact that I did not do a proper mold. Like I said, hindsight's 20/20. I should have just done a normal mold. End result would have been the same. It just would have been a lot quicker and easier is all. There's the inside. I think we already saw that earlier. And it is about 9 millimeters thick. That is about, I want to say that's about 8 or 9 or 10, let's say about 9 layers thick right around here. And again, that's a nice thickness that it doesn't feel sharp when you grab a hold of it. And it's really stiff. So yeah, I'm pleased with this. Just a few more minutes of touching up some stuff and it'll be perfectly fine. However, it is far from done because if you look at the kit part, obviously there's a control panel here. So this will get cut out and I'll make a control panel that'll fit from the back side with all the little knobs and buttons and stuff. There's some little racks or something back here. I gotta look at some photos and see what those are. I'm thinking those are kind of like a little luggage rack type of thing, or maybe they're supposed to be a vent. I'm really not sure. So I got to look at some reference photos to see what those are and obviously add that to it. And also right in here where the handlebars and the other things come in, I need to cut those shapes out. And once I cut those shapes out, and plus the vent here. So once I cut all of those shapes out of here, then I need to build stuff on the back side. And I also have to cut the profile here. Obviously, I have not done that yet. So I have to cut the profile in here. So basically what I've done is I made the piece that I need to use to make the thing out of, if that makes any sense. So the hard part's done. Now it's just a matter of making all the details, and that's going to be in another video because I know for a fact this video is way too long for what it is. Now, I have learned my lesson as far as making proper molds. For these pieces right here, which are the side fairings, this is going to go on somewhere around there, I think. Something like that. So those side fairings, I actually decided to do it the right way. And I made a mold. This was a 3D printed piece, and I covered it in 5 layers of just regular S-glass like this. So 5 layers of that, and then popped that out, and found out that it was a little bit too flimsy. You can tell it damaged the paint a little bit, pulled some paint off. That's easy enough to fix. That should just come out with some acetone or something. That's just some dust that's in there. So 5 layers of fiberglass were too flimsy. So I basically, as you can see what I did, I just cut out some pieces of that fake wood stuff and just glued it around, and that makes it really stiff, really firm. There's no more flex in here, and I just attached that with fiberglass and CA. I didn't feel like waiting for resin to cure, so I just CA'd some fiberglass around there, and that is going to hold that on perfectly strong enough. So I did this twice, and I got 2 of these, you know, just in case you didn't believe me. Get that out of there. Get that out of there. There you go. So I'll just lay in probably, you know, I want it to be about 3 millimeters thick. So I'll probably do about, I don't know, 9 to 10 layers. That'll actually be less than 3 millimeters. Probably 8 or 9 layers will be perfectly good enough. And so I just have to prep these, put some mold release agent in it, and then we'll get those pieces done. I'm not going to do that this video because, like I said, this video is already way too long, but you already know like what the end result can look like. This was a lot more complicated than this, so hopefully this will be good enough, this video. Next video on this project, these will be done, and we'll be putting in all the details to this. So anyways, I think that'll be it for now, and I appreciate you for watching and hanging in there for this incredibly way too long video. And as always, until next time, thanks for watching. Oh, and here's kind of a sneak peek of what it's looking like so far. So, you know, just to kind of give you an idea. And it's coming along pretty good, I think. So, anyways, like I said, until next time, thanks for watching.